Good afternoon, flosstube. This is take number 3. It has taken me all week. Hopefully this will be the last take. Last time I accidentally bumped it onto time lapse, and my 1 hour video was done in 30 seconds, or almost. So attempt number 3, and hopefully it'll go smoothly and you will finally see an update from me. So let me introduce myself. I am Kiralee. I live in Australia, in Queensland. I am an avid cross-stitcher of Mirabilias, Hades. I have a couple of long dog samplers that I'm really enjoying the process for. And I have a few other odds and ends. I have one Teresa Winston on the go, which you'll actually see this time. And so today I will talk about my cross-stitching, my whips. You'll see a few of my whips that are in sort of for the last few months. I won't go through everything. I may do a whip parade when I'm a little bit more organised. You'll see some of the project bags. I make all my own project bags. I found a really wonderful video, very simple instructions on how to make project bags. And as I can sew, I'm not the best of sewers, but I don't mind it. And if it's anything to do with project or craft organisation, I will attempt it. And yeah, so you'll see a bit of that. And you'll see some other sewing things as well. And I've got into journaling and keeping a diary and a bit of a cross-stitch journal. It's very homemade, or what do they call it, Franken-planning style. It's nothing that's pre-purchased or anything, so I make my own pages up for what I need. And yeah, so I'll show that too at the end. So this year, it's February. It is the 26th, Saturday the 26th. The small town I live in Queensland, we have had in the last 24 hours I measured 235 millimeters of rain. That is a lot of rain, especially just in 24 hours. There are other places that are experiencing a lot more at the moment. But for us, we've only just had that amount only last month. We're having a very wet summer, a very mild summer. Today's a bit humid. So I've got the aircon on and the fans going. Hopefully this is not going to affect my sound and I'll have to redo this all again without the fan on. Fingers crossed, all goes well. So let's start with what I've been stitching on. So my whips, it is in some order but not exact order, as having done this 2 times already, I've realized I'm mixing up the order a bit just so it's probably more a bit cohesive. So this year last year I did whip go, and I've decided to do it whip go again this year. So last year for whip go, on my whip go board I had individual projects just listed, all my whips, because I didn't have 25 whips. I still don't think I have 25 whips. I do have to go through and do a bit of a head count. But it doesn't concern me. I stitch on what I wish to stitch on and we'll go from there. And if I'm not feeling it, I'm not feeling it, it gets put away. And so that was last year. This year, I'm really wanting to focus on getting some completions and getting some major progress done on just a few of my pieces. And so I have a focus for a finish list, and the whip go board is based around that. And so, but I know that if I just did that, I'd probably go in crazy and lose my mojo, and I don't want that to happen. So on my whip go board this year. I've got my focus for finishes, and I've got that several times on the board. Then I've got do double time. So it just means I'll do extra focus on a whip, or double up whatever's been drawn. And then I've got other things like do silks, work with silks, or work on a monochrome, or let's crush some confetti, or flight of fancy, which means that anything, so long as I can justify it being fanciful, it will get worked on. And then I've also got themes that I would like to work to for the months, and those themes are connected to my designers, but also I do a lot of cross-stitching to audiobooks, and I really enjoy my fantasy and urban fantasy books. And one of my favorite authors is releasing a book about, I think it's actually 2 of them are releasing books this month. And then I've got another one releasing another book in May, I think. And the authors that are releasing this month are Annette Marie. I've gotten into her Crystal Druid series, and I don't know what the other series is called, but they're all sort of linked. And then the other series that's releasing, I should say, is Anne Bishop, and she's releasing Crow Bones, which is part of her Others collection. And so there's a piece I want to work on for that as well. And they link back pretty much to Mirabilias and what I stitch in Mirabilias. So I am looking forward to March, because both of my whip goes for March this year have been Flight of Fancy. So I get a double up of Flight of Fancy. So I'll either focus on one or I will focus on all the things. I have been watching Fiber Art Amy, and she is a Mirabilia fanatic. Her collection of patterns is amazing. She's just posted up 3 videos of every single Mirabilia pattern that she owns. I've only just started watching that this weekend, so I'm itching to get into this craft room, do a bit of a tidy up, and do a cross-stitch sort out and see what Mirabilias I can kit up. And I have been watching the Sharky Stitcher, and she does, again, Mirabilias, but she also does Bella Filipinas. I haven't stitched a Bella Filipina yet. I like her patterns. I just haven't seen one that I have to stitch, I suppose. I think I've got so much else on the go, I've sort of slowed down on having to buy everything and stitch everything, but I would like to try one of her patterns. I just haven't decided on one yet. So, wow, I've gone on a real ramble, so let's get into what I'm doing. So my focus for finishes this year, I've got 3 of them that I really want to finish. One is my oldest whip. It's my very first big cross stitch that I have started on and have never finished. And the other ones are actually 2 new starts that were last year. One's small and I'd just like to get it done and out the way, and one was the cross stitch sale, and of course I didn't keep up. No surprise there, but that's okay. So what I've just been working on, and I've been working on it today, and I have really progressed it lately. I'm working on this one in hand. It is my travel piece, or for when I go away on weekends, or when I have to go away to the other towns for work. So I work for our local council, and sometimes I have to go to the other towns for a day to do a training session or to work or backfill. And so I take a piece to stitch on in my lunch, because we get an hour's lunch, and I eat my lunch within 15 minutes, so that leaves me 45 minutes to do it on my thumbs. So I tend to find a comfy spot and cross stitch, and the piece that it is Baba Yaga by the Witchy Stitcher. I love this. Now, I've just recently reread all of my Patricia Briggs Mercy Thompson books, and I've really enjoyed rereading them, and they have a Baba Yaga character come into it, and I just really enjoyed that. And at the same time, oh, my throat's gone funny, just bear with me. Everyone was talking about the Witchy Stitcher sale that was going to be coming up, and so I started looking on her website, and I saw this, and I just have to stitch it. And since I've started this one and done this one, I noticed that Autumn Lane released a Baba Yaga pattern that was in a stitchy box, so I am hoping, I have my fingers crossed, it'll be released as an individual pattern at a later date. I think it's usually about a year later, so that's okay. I will always be into the fairy tale horror sort of thing. My birthday's Halloween, so I like things Halloweeny. I'm a little bit fussy, but I'm fussy with everything. If we're going to devote the time and the money into something, I think we're allowed to be fussy on what we like and what we don't like. And I love it, and we're all different, and we all love different things. We'd be a boring world if we loved all the same things. So that is Baba Yaga, and that's going to be a focus for a finish this year. I have stitched on it so much just in the last couple of days, just with the rain and the power outages. It was a nice easy piece where I don't need to have a light, and I don't need to wear magnifiers. As long as I've got good sunlight, I can go and stitch. The pattern's very simple, so I've made huge progress. The next piece on my focus for a finish list is my cryptid cell. I am using Diamond because everyone was raving about Diamond. Now, I think my problem is I'd like to stitch on 28 count, and I prefer a really good solid coverage, and to get that on 28 count even weave, I felt I needed to double strand it, and it has been a nightmare. I love the effect, don't get me wrong, I love the effect. I love how it actually looks like a picture frame, and it's got a very distinct look. I don't know if you'll see the difference. So that's just ordinary black DMC, and the frames are all in the Diamond, and the moons are also in the metallic Diamond. And this is how far I've gotten on it. I have not stitched on it this year. Last time I stitched on it was just before Christmas. I've still got the border to do. I've got quite a bit to do on this. I left out the frogman, because we have a frog phobia in our family, and if I put the frogman in, no one would walk past it, and it's just easier not to do it. And I'm really happy I skipped it and hadn't rushed ahead to decide what I was going to do in there, because at the very end she released an additional couple of patterns, and I think one will fit in there, so that'll work out nicely. Oh, I dye my own fabrics. There's very few fabrics that I have here that aren't dyed by me. I went into a bit, very long story short, there was an amazing fabric dyer that my local needlework shop was getting, and then she went out of practice, and at that stage there was very few people doing the fabric dyeing here in Australia, and the selection was very minimal. So I decided to start playing with dyes, and I love it. I find it so much fun and experimenting, and while the fabric is not cheap, I will do a practice piece on the cotton to see how the colours will show. It'll show a bit differently on the cross stitch fabric compared to the cotton, but doing it on the, playing with the cotton gives me an idea of how it'll look and how to work it out and quantities. So I have a lot of cotton dyed up, and I'll show you a few of my project bags coming up, and you'll see I just use them in my project bags as my inside linings, and also in my boxes that I make. So the next one, this is my main focus for a finish that I'm going to show you. This is my Teresa Wentzler piece. Just a sec, I've got to get this out so I can show you it's a full piece. And it is called The Storyteller. This is an extremely, extremely old whip. And I actually don't know what the fabric is I'm working on. I think it may be like a Joplin or something. I'm not too sure. It's just a cream, which is fine for this because it's such full coverage. So I have done a heap. I worked on it pretty much all of January, and I finished off, let's see if I can get it in the page. I finished off this page here. So now I've got this page here to go, and I've got all of this border to finish off, and a little bit of this one, and a few pieces in here. And then in each corner there's some fancy stitches to go in, sorry. And then I have got a ton of back stitching to put in, all those feathers and the wings, and so much back stitching. And the border is all back stitched, and yep, but it is going to be worth it. I cannot wait. I've been enjoying working on this so much that I've been contemplating starting one of my others that I have of hers. Back when I bought this piece, she was the designer to buy. There wasn't much else to choose from, and I do have a few of her patterns. Going through them, I probably won't stitch them all, but I really am contemplating starting the mermaid once I finish this. The Sharky Stitcher gave a couple of tips on setting up and kitting up, and I didn't know about how you can get the floss list off the Teresa Wentzler Design Works page. Now that I do, it's not so daunting because the thread lists are monstrous. She doesn't list them by number order in the old booklets. She lists them by colour groupings, and then she's got all this blended thread, and then you've got to go find the thread colours and to make sure you've got all them. And yeah. Oh, and the other reason I'd put off starting it was because the skin on her is stitched 1/1, and I wasn't quite game to try that. Now that I've been stitching for quite a few more years now, I am thinking that I'm going to do her. Excuse me, sorry. The next piece I have worked on this year is one of my long dog samplers. It is Life After Death. It's another piece of linen I've dyed myself, and I am using silks. I'm using a Silk for You PR103, and it variegates from teal blue to purple. And I am backstitching the backstitching sections with a chronic purple. And so far the only change I've made is, again, because the frog phobia, there were frogs, I put bees. I changed them to bees. So I looked up some bee patterns and did a bit of fiddling and made some bees to fit in the space the frogs fit. I have Pattern Keeper, but before Pattern Keeper, I'm an Apple person predominantly, and Pattern Keeper wasn't coming out on Apple for any foreseeable future time, so I gave in and bought an Android, but on my Apple, I use a program called Notability, and it's just an annotation program. And I basically just designed over top of the frogs to make sure they fitted in the same space. And I'm really happy with how they felt like. So this time around, this session on it, I'd stitched this whale, and I must say, I love all the little people in his belly. So yes, I'm looking forward to getting quite a bit more of that one done over the course of the next year. Now we are onto my mirabilias. So this is one of the pieces that I wish to stitch for March. So I mentioned that Anne Bishop is bringing out Crow Bones. Now, one of the books in that series is called Lake Silence. And so when I saw this Mirabilia pattern, I just had to get it. It is Echo Lake. So I just had to get this one. This is going to be an interesting piece because it's pretty much 50% full coverage. And I just think they're gorgeous. I love how they're rising out of the water. I love the otherness of them too. So I'm really excited about getting going on her. I haven't really started this one too much, these ladies too much. I experimented with dyeing Horizon on my piece, and I'm loving how it worked. And I think this is the right one. Sorry, I'm getting all croaky. So I've only done this tiny stitch, but it's basically to find the center and where I'll be working on, and whether my horizon, whether I'm happy with it, and I am. So they'll come up. Sorry, I'm gonna have to do this so I can just manage it. So that's my middle. And so one will come up this side, and the other one should come up through here. So that's going to look beautiful. A little concerned about the darkness of the fabric and the lightness of the thread, especially on their skin, so fingers crossed it doesn't show through and doesn't become murky. So I am looking forward to working on that next month. Now, sorry, I was going to show you. So this is the project bag I made. And I'll just take the pattern and the fabric out. And so this is what I do with my experiments of cotton. I put them on the inside of my project bags. So, yeah. So that was Echo Lake. The next Mirabilia I am going to show you, and which I have worked on in January, is Venetian Opulence, and she is in another bag that I have made myself, and this again is what I made myself. That is my inside fabric. It was really hard to find a fabric to go with this because of the colours of the blue, so in the end I went black and just threw a few speckles of blue into it, and I really love how it turned out. So this is Venetian Opulence by Mirabilia. So this is the pattern. Darling, shush, sorry. She's decided to be bossy about something, and she won't go, excuse me. So this is Venetian Opulence. I am not going to stitch At this point in time, I should say I'm not going to stitch this piece up here, and I'll show you why, because this is the fabric I am stitching her on. I'm stitching her on 32 count of opalescence. I'm stitching her on the 32 count because I do actually want her to be the smaller size, and she'll fit where I want to fit her, hopefully. And this is the fabric and where I'm at the moment. Now I don't want to stitch that top section because A, I want the feather in her hair to really stand out, and B, I just love how this fabric turned out. This dye I'm using is photosensitive, or photoreactive, sorry. So when I set it outside to set, the more sunlight it gets, the stronger in colour it gets. I've got a few pieces I want to do some dyeing for where I love the strong colours, really love the strong colours. But I've got a few pieces I want to dye where I don't want it to be as strong. And so they'll have to be set inside, which is okay. Excuse me. I dropped the pattern. So that was Venetian Opulence. The last mirror that I've worked on is, actually it's my last mirror whip as well. The others are all sort of kitted up, but they've not been started. So this last one is Christmas Flourishes. And of course I worked on her for Christmas. She's probably my oldest Mirabilia whip. Most Mirabilias I can get through reasonably quickly. That is Persephone. She took me a lot longer. She's huge. It's still a fat quarter, but that dress I got really bogged down in. I usually, for this one, I actually got bogged down in doing the flesh tones. There's a lot of flesh tones on this, and I found it really hard, but I've now finished all the flesh tones, and now it's just on with the dress. So this year I'm actually thinking of doing Mirror March and Mirror Mania. So Mirror March, I think I will just focus on the current whips if I don't get distracted by something else. And then for Mania, I am thinking of doing all the starts. I've been contemplating doing a Bella Filipina. There's a couple that have come out that I don't mind, and part of me thinks, oh, I would like to do that. And I might yet do that and just make it a Mermaid Mania or something. Although having said that, the pattern I really love at the moment by Bella Filipina is actually a little fairy. The Sharky Stitch showed her, and I think she is quite cute. She's got the cutest boots and the funkiest little dresses. I should say dress. And I love her face. Now, the Haid whip I have worked on so far this month. This month and this year, because it's the only Haid I've worked on so far, is Josephine Wall, the Dragon Charmer, and this is what she'll look like in the end. Now this is my piece for heavy confetti because, oh my lordy, I haven't even got down to the tattoos. I mean, just doing this crown alone, and even the green. But it is okay, it is beautiful, and I can't wait to get more progress on it. And this is, so that's one end, and this is what I've done so far. So I've just been filling in down the edge. I want to find the bottom, and then I just want to bring it along. I think I'm at 25% done. We shall see how we go. I'm seeing how I go with focus for a finish. And I've only listed those 3. I think I'd really stress myself out if I listed more. But there are a few I'd really like to focus, instead of having a focus for a finish, having a focus for maximum progress. And I think that's what I will do for the end of the year. Once I've gotten those 3 finishes, just focus on some of the bigger pieces where I've made some good progress and really put some power into it, because I don't think I've got anything at the stage that I could get another finish in, unless I started a Nora Corbett, and there's a few little Nora Corbett's I wouldn't mind doing. I've been contemplating the Zodiac girls, because they are beautiful. As a Scorpio, I must say that's the nicest Scorpio pattern I have ever seen. I usually think every Scorpio pattern I've seen in the past has been ugly. I mean, how do you make a scorpion pretty, to be honest? So I really, really love what she's done for Scorpio. So I'm thinking of doing the Scorpio. As in, I'm probably be going onto my online LNS this afternoon and placing a little purchase, or 2 or 3. So the last piece I'm going to show you is my chatelaine that I've been working on over Christmas. And it is Pomerium. I haven't worked on it much at all. I've got the basic start. The centerpiece is a lot bigger than I thought it would be. This is the centerpiece. It is a huge piece of fabric. The fabric is so huge, I've got to fold it right up. It is going to be a giant pattern. I mean, the centerpiece alone is huge, but it's beautiful. The specialty threads are gorgeous. So that's Pomerium. I don't have a photo of what it looked like finished, but what I wanted to show you is, so this is the project bag I've made, and this is Centauro fabric, and I've used the Centauro fabric in the lining. But what I've made for this one, because of the sheer number of threads, so there's a huge quantity of specialty threads and a huge quantity of DMCs, and I have gone to pre-cutting my threads, especially my DMCs, actually only my DMCs, and my silks from the monochrome. I have discovered the beauty of pre-cutting and having them loosely braided and just being able to whip out a piece of thread so much quicker than unwinding and cutting and then separating, then rewinding and then putting the bobbin back. Just having it on a thread drop, pre-cut and ripping out a piece is so much easier. So I've made little project bags to hold the threads. So this is the DMC, which I have on a ring that I've made thread drops for, and I've pre-cut and I have loosely braided, and then they all tuck into that bag. Oh, they normally all tuck into the bag. All tuck back in, and nice and tidy. But what I'm keeping them in, all my threads in, is I made myself a thread box, and this is my thread box. So I panel of the Centauro fabric. I love her. She is my favourite. I'm a mermaid person, so when you brought out her with all of her barnacles and shells and coral in her hair, I just loved her. And that's the matching seaside garden fabric from the same range. And then I hand dyed the fabric on the inside. I've used a knob from Tim Holt's knobs. He had a pack of knobs that he brought out. There was a pack of 3 gorgeous knobs. And then I've just made a little loop that I've beaded up, covered and beaded up, and that comes down and latches over there. So in here I have my DMC in the bags. I have made matching and smaller bags for my rainbow gallery treasures. And then along the bottom of the box sit all of my specialty threads, and they're all color coded. So blue is Gloriana, pink is Dinky Dyes, silver is water lilies, and then I made these little pouches. So they're just clear vinyl pouches with a bit of pleather or leather, faux leather, or vinyl if you want to call it. And I've used the heat stick vinyl to cut out the words, cut out the name, and I've labelled them up, and then just 2 studs, one on either side, and slip in the skein or 2 that I need, and then that goes in, yeah, and they store in there. And that is how I store my chatelaines. So that is how I store. I should say pomerium. I haven't really set one up for, what's the other chatelaine I have? Victorian Garden Mandala. And that is everything I've stitched on. Now, a few other things I was going to show you is over Christmas I have discovered Patterns by Annie, and she has some, if you're a sewer, these are amazing. If you haven't already found her and stitched her, these patterns, these are 3 I've just purchased. I haven't made this one yet, so they're ones I am going to make in the very near future. But this is one I made over Christmas. Actually, it wasn't over Christmas, I lied. Sorry, the first week of February. I finally got game to give it a try, and then when I did, I just loved the process. And it's a bag called In Control, and it is gorgeous. So there's a zip here, a zip bit here, there's pockets here and here, and here and here. Inside, let's see if I can show you inside. So you've got the middle section, then you've got pockets on this side and pockets on that side. And I'm using this to store my journaling stickers. It works perfectly. And that means that when I go away for a weekend, I just have to grab my journal, grab this. I've yet to make a bag to store all the washi tape. But basically I just throw the washi tape into a pencil case, and all my, I've got some pencil cases to make up, and my pens into pencil cases, and off I go for the weekend to my parents' beach house or wherever I'm going. And yeah, look at me go, look at me sew. Maybe that should be the name of my channel going forward. Look at me sew. the last thing I was going to talk about is I mentioned I was getting into journaling. I haven't filmed for a while because I've had some work stresses, and it has taken me a long while to get back into the mood to record. But through the work stresses and some health issues that I've had, I started keeping a diary or a planner, whatever you want to call it. And so I went the happy planner route, and hence why I have so many stickers. I like the creative process. I don't do anything super crazy. Actually, look, I can even show you. This is last week gone, and sometimes I will have a lot, sometimes I won't. So this is the last week. I wax some washi tape in, and I put in the things of note. So for the last couple of days, it has been the weather and the fact that I got in and I did the whole yard, mowed the whole yard in one go. I was a bit stressed, and I found that I stood behind the mower and pushed the mower around. By the end of it, I was exhausted, but I'd gotten out of my head, so that was a good thing. And then I started doing that and enjoyed doing that, and thought, well, I really want to keep track of my cross stitch, and I was just starting to find that I couldn't remember. I'm sorry, my chair's sunk a little bit. Let me just sit up a bit higher. I was starting to lose the facts about what I was stitching on, and when I'd stitched on something, how long it had taken me, and when I'd started. And there was a few other things I wanted to make a note of. So I looked online for different types of planners, like cross-stitch planners, but I'm not a stitch counter. I love Pattern Keeper because it tells me how many stitches I stitch. It's like, oh look, I stitched this, but not all of my patterns are on Pattern Keeper. So and while it's fun seeing that I've done this many stitches and seeing the percentage go down, or go up I should say, of what I've stitched, it's not necessary for me, and I don't sit there and count every single stitch I stitch on every single day. Half the time I forget to write down how many stitches I've stitched, even when using Pattern Keeper. So that's wasn't important for me. I wanted to have a space where I could list patterns I want to get. I wanted to list details about patterns I'd started, what I'd stitched on, if I'd made changes, when I'd stitched on them last, and just go from there. So I made myself my own journal just with a Happy Planner notepad, and then I bought some calendar pages which you could buy as a pack, and I've just mushed the two together and grab a page of whichever one I need, and yeah, go from there. So I'll give you a quick look through. There's nothing super private. So my birthday present last year was, I always buy myself a birthday present, and last year it was the Canon selfie printer. So I'm able to print these tiny little photos, and I'm using them throughout this book as a visual thing as well. So that is where I started at this year on the Storyteller. And then I'll put a photo of it finished, when I finish it, and put a date of when I finished it. And then the next one I'll put underneath it. So that's my focus for a finish this year, and it's my front page, because that is what this year is about, focusing for finishes. Now the next section is my monthly section, where I've done the calendars. And all I'm doing is making a note on the day what I've stitched on. I'm not really doing stitch count. Sometimes I put a stitch count there, like I said, if I'm using Pattern Keeper. And down the bottom, I am writing the whip go numbers and what I've decided to stitch against it, and then anything else I've stitched on underneath. At the beginning of a month, I'm just doing a thoughts for the month at the top of the page on the back of the calendar, and then I'll do a month in review at the bottom, and I'll do that probably tomorrow night or even this afternoon after I've filmed it while I'm waiting for this to load, if it works. So far so good. And this was January's, and again just a little bit of information. I've just decorated a little bit with a little bit of washi tape. And again, I did thoughts for January on the back. And then, so this is my stitching goals for 2022. So I made, this year I'm going to try and work on a select few focus pieces. These focus pieces are going to be, as for my other whips, I'm going to let the whip go board guide me. I was finding in December I didn't actually work on my last whip go goal because I started focusing on a new year and what I wanted to stitch in the new year, and getting all excited about that and getting all caught up in that I never stitched on the second piece that was called. So we'll see what this year brings because it's not piece specific, and see how I go at the end of the year. But I'm looking forward to it. At the end of the year for 2021, I did a reflections on my stitching year. This year I participated in whip go and I managed to stick with it. I have worked on every whip, finished 2 and had 6 starts. In particular my first cell, and I participated in my first cell, the Witchy Stitch encrypted cell. Then I made a note for next year. And then I've got the other months behind. In this next section I have where I've thought about themes and what I'd like to focus on, focus days, other things that I've seen other people doing to give me ideas. Sorry. Then I've gone through and I've listed out all my whips by designer. And that goes on for a couple of pages. And then I've got a wish list. So you'll see Nora Corbett, 38 Girls, and also her Geranium Pixie. And there's a Haid there that I would really like. It's beautiful, beautiful Sanctuary, I think it is. And I would actually like to try that as a mini with no background. But we shall see. We shall see. I have so many Haid. I think I'll see how this year goes with my stitching before I start another Haid. I have got Haid patterns and I've got the fabric to start the Haid patterns. So I don't really need to have another Haid pattern. But we'll see what I work on and see where I get on things. I think play it by ear. I mean, if she decides to suddenly retire that designer, I'm getting on there quick smart and I'm buying that pattern. So here I've just kept the measurements for the box that I've made. I was going to do a tray insert, but instead I haven't done that. I've just done the bags, but I might still make a tray insert, as when I get to the beading I'm going to need a beading tray, but I might just make myself a beading box that's a tray and a box, and yeah, I have ideas. We'll see how I go. These are the vinyl bag these are the bag sizes I make, and so I've just kept a note of all the measurements. I figure it's all stuff that relate back to my cross stitching. So then the last section, and one of the main reasons I started this was I wanted to create some WIP project pages. Here's a good one to show you. And where I make a note of the pattern, make a note of the artist, the designer, the fabric count I'm using, started, finished, progress, and a progress tracker down the bottom. So this is actually pomeriums. I haven't put my progress since Christmas, but this is my progress prior to Christmas. So yeah, I have made quite a bit. I'll take another, the light's gone. I'll take another photo later on and do it. Here is what I've done for one of my heights. So, picture of the piece that it's going to look like. Bit of the all the information, size. I've got to go back through my photos and find started dates. I usually take a photo of the day I started it, and then when I last worked on it. And like I said, I will try and make a note of the date I finished working on it last and what I got up to. And I've sort of worked through and done that for all my pieces. Or if I haven't done it for all, I'm getting close to having done it for all. There are a few pieces like the Cryptid Cell and Baba Yaga, which are the photos that are sitting in here, that I won't, because I want to finish them this year, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to get in and get them finished, so I have a start and an end photo for the focus page. And that is everything I've worked on so far this year. Plans going forward. I have quite a few patterns in my stash that I'd like to start, and I have some fabrics that I'd like to use, and then there's also some patterns I would like to buy and start. So I'd really like to start, let me start that sentence again. I've been humming and hawing about a Bella Filipina pattern or two, and I am thinking of doing a Nora Corbett pattern or 2 or 3, because I really love those Zodiac girls. I don't know if I'd do them all because I'm not a Zodiac person, but I was thinking I might do one for me, and I might do one up for my mum, but I might just keep it in the house because she's what's January? Capricorn, I think. Pretty sure she's Capricorn, and that's a pretty cool pattern too. And then I have a spare bedroom I've got, if she ever wishes to stay the night, she can stay the night, and I might just hang that on the door or something. I don't know. We shall see. Yeah, I want to stitch all the things, and I stitch a lot, but I have a feeling this video has worked, and I'm really excited, and I'm really, really hoping the sound is okay. So I will see you on the flip side, and you have a good month. All have a good month, stay well and safe, and keep on stitching.